Hello again, everyone. Mark Truss from Wunderman Thompson. And
Belle Frank from VML Y&R.
okay, so here we are still in module 5 talking about creative briefs. So we will have taken you through what is a creative brief. Now we're going to talk very briefly about some of the research methods that you can use. Let me share this screen when doing creative briefs. And some of this, as Belle says, should sound pretty familiar, but let's start off. So to live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong. And I love that quote because I think in the ad business, that's so true. But you want to know something? I think that line says a lot about researchers too. You know, I think one of the big traps researchers fall into is thinking there is a way and only a way to do research. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I think there is a ton of elbow room to be very creative with the types of research you do, how you design them, how you analyze them, how you present them. And I do think as researchers, sometimes this is our biggest fear, is being wrong. So feel free to put yourself out there. Okay, what are you going to walk away from this certificate with? I think you guys should say it to me because you've seen it enough. Let's skip that this time. You know that this builds on foundations, and I think you know what you're going to get out of this course, which is understanding how research applies in the advertising business and all the detail that we've talked about for each class. So here we are, Module 5. We're coming into the home stretch of this course. And as I said, in this module, there are 2 lectures. You will have already seen what is a creative brief. And here we are with research methods to help inform the creative brief. And with that, Belle, take it away.
So it's interesting because you have spent your course understanding that research has a very critical role throughout the advertising and creative development process. And of course, in the beginning, I love this graphic because in the beginning, it ought to be about exploring and understanding and inspiring. And at some point, it needs to be about assessing, but not just assessing and killing, assessing and optimizing. So if we really believe that research can contribute, it needs to contribute more than simply this didn't work. It needs to help me understand how to make things better. So we talked about how you get grounded and get to a brief. We talked about the idea that research will inform these things. We talked about creative thinking and ideation. We talked about the fact that ideas will then be refined with research. And some of the ways we talked about getting to big idea and studying them, the process and the research methodology could sound the same. It's just that the job you're doing is different. You need it to get somewhere else. Maybe you started with a brand that already had a big idea, and now you need to go through this process to get to the brief. It's all about what you bring to the party and what job it is and aligning on the real objectives. And finally, to get to a finished product, you need to assess, you need to validate, and with luck, you need to optimize the communications before it launches so that actually you can feel pretty confident that it will have the marketplace impact that you want. And of course, research has to be there, especially in our world today, to understand the impact and to make sure things get better so that we don't waste our money and we don't waste our time. Did it change? Oh, all the types. Okay. So you talk about these in all of the different modules. We talked about positioning. We talked about audience research. You talked about the notion of big idea research. I don't know who did the lectures on UX and understanding search, but all of this contributes to getting grounded and understanding what's happening. You're going to do campaign concept testing. You're going to do ad testing. You can test all the elements of different kinds of work. You can test it in co-creation. You can let people play with it. I think that quote about not being afraid to be wrong, I used to say to my teams, okay, you don't like that idea? I'll give you another idea. So the truth is, pushing through and being willing to offer something that's a little bit hypothetical based on your research will make you, again, a very valuable partner. We need to understand when we test early stage work, how to make it better. There's copy testing tools. When it comes to digital, we can put 2 versions out there and look at it. And of course, once ads are running, many, many brands engage in tracking of their brands and tracking of the ads to make sure that the marketplace, they're chugging along the way they need to, that their brand is performing the way it needs to. Okay, what kind of research? In the exploring, understanding, and inspiring, it tends to be desk research, qualitative, observational, although surveys help too. Cultural surveys, what do people think? And as you get to assessing and optimizing, it tends to be quantitative, but not exclusively. If you have a very small audience, you might, and a very homogeneous audience, you might not need a big sample. You might just be able to talk to representative people to understand. Again, and this is the part that's familiar, because research is informing the brief, it's also going to inform it each of the stages. We talked about these questions, understanding the objective. You can understand that from research. Desk research, maybe. What are the other brands doing? What's happening in the marketplace? You can size and profile your audience so you know what they're about. You can figure out your messages. There's message testing. You can actually propose messages in the absence of creative and just to see what's more motivational. And many clients do that. You can test your proof points. What seems to be the thing people believe most? You can figure out what it is you want people to do by assessing and analyzing your marketplace. And we talked in the brief about different kinds of creativity you can apply to research to get to personality. Obviously, some of this you already know, right? You've conducted the research. It's there. The client tells you, here's my goal. I got to grow my share and I've got to make infrequent users use me more. Or I've got to get brand switchers to pick me and not the competitive. The client will understand. Many times you come in and you've got to align on it. I would not take it at face value. I would make sure the data reflects what the client is asking you to do.
I'd just like to make one point, though, that, you know, in all my years working at an agency, I've never heard someone say, I need to do creative brief research. That's not a thing. It's people are doing research in the whole process, and some of it ends up in the creative brief. Some of it is in service of the brief, but I've not heard it referred to it that way.
I once called research. I said to the client, I need to do brief exploration research. We really didn't know. Sometimes they do it with concept tests, Mark, with white cards where they say, we could go in this way or this way. And then depending on which proposition looks better, we write the brief to that proposition.
Yeah.
But brief development research is something I ask for it a lot if we don't know anything. And if the clients are creative, they might agree.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. The real pre-brief research is about what people are currently doing. We talked about this. How do we know their motivations? We go into the marketplace, we go into their homes, we open their refrigerators, we figure out what they're actually doing. We do shop-alongs and watch people shop to figure out, oh, are they really reading ingredients like they say they are? Or are they simply grabbing the thing that's on sale and special this week? But fundamentally, when you're doing research, brief development research or grounding research, there's some real principles that will make a difference, right? Respect your team. Understand, Mark talked in the brief lecture about people thinking creative people really don't care about facts. Creative people really care about facts. What is the truth of what's going on? Respect that process. Understand that they need both time and information as well as inspiration. When you see an idea and somebody's got heart for it and you're not quite sure how it's going to work, try to nurture that idea. Try to get beneath what it is that makes them think there's something there, and then help them figure out how to best express it so that people can assess it and clients can appreciate it. Make sure there's time and be patient. The first work you see has got an idea buried and maybe isn't expressed right. Don't get tripped up. Give them the benefit of the doubt and try really hard to become an ally so that that work can be appreciated and nurtured. If research and briefs is a good idea, but you've got to also respect the part that's in the brief. I always encourage us not to be precious about the brief. Let's learn from the research. We try our best to get to a place, but if your creative people think there's nothing I can do with this, and you respect them and they respect you, you'll get to a better brief through the collaboration.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about how many times I see the first round of creative that comes out of the brief, and I'll like some more than others, and some I'll think, oh, that's awful. That's not going to do anything. But then as they develop and optimize and make it, it can turn into this great thing
For sure.
that I didn't see at that first round. So I think this idea of, don't give up on ideas too early. That's a real mistake.
Yep.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that concludes module 5. Thank
The
you
best
all
module.
the best. Bill, thank you so much. That was really, really helpful. And thank you all for joining us. Be well.
Bye.